Well, Jeff Lebby didn't hold back from energy shifts to missed throws, recruiting shakeups to red zone precision. He covered a lot, but there's one message that came through loud and clear. Stick around.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, my name is Jaron Spor. I'm a national college football writer at Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. We've got another fun show for you today, so sit back and relax. We got to talk about the annual opponents for every SEC team was announced. Who does Mississippi State have? We'll break that down. We'll also recap the national games from week 4. It's crazy. We're already moving into week 5 of the season. It is flying by. But first, we got to talk about Jeff Lebby's press conference. He had that on a Monday. He talked about a lot of stuff. This was felt like one of the, I didn't go back and look at the exact time, but it felt like one of the longer ones just because he had a lot to talk about. But they kind of asked him, and this is kind of reconfirms what Landon and I kind of thought from the game, but he kind of rehashed what he saw when he went and watched the tape of the game against Northern Illinois. And he said the way we played in the second half in comparison to the first half was like two different football teams. He said from an energy standpoint, he felt that on the field early. He said our guys thought the way we came out in the second half and how we played complementary football was huge. We needed it, and there's a ton to clean up, which he almost always says that. Yeah. But he's right. He mentioned the penalties; they have to clean that up. He said that was a huge stress in the team meeting Monday morning. He says our guys feel that urgency from us, and we've got to find ways to make that happen. And that was, a problem in the Southern Miss game. That was again another problem, and we talked about it in the Southern Miss game. Like sometimes that stuff happens in the first game, penalties, but you have to, if you clean it up, it's obviously it can be cleaned up. But now it's starting to rear its ugly head around again, and that's going to cost you against the better opponents.
Yeah, and we both knew that penalties were a problem, but it didn't really stick out to me just how much of a problem it was when I read that only Georgia State has drawn more flags in all of college football. So that's like, I knew this last game there were a lot, and in the first game there were a lot, but I didn't realize that it had accumulated to that point. Because I'm not counting flags, but there was a lot of penalty yardage. And once you get into SEC play, you can't commit, 10, 11 penalties a game?
I think they've had double-digit penalties every game, but Arizona State, ironically. I think they only had 6 in that one. But outside of that, I'm pretty sure I think they had 14 in the first one. I think they had 10 against Alcorn State, and then they, of course, had 11 this last game. So yeah, I mean, the one game of 6, outside of that, it's double digits.
And even 6 is kind of a lot. I mean,
and it was 6 for 60, so you're averaging 10 yards. So it wasn't like a false start or a delayed game or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely the biggest point of emphasis because, like he said, Lebby said that's not playing winning football. And that really, I mean, it's not. It's to an extent, everyone's going to commit some penalties. You got to chop that about in half if you want to be competitive in some of these games in the SEC that we think are closer to toss-ups. If you're giving that other team 100 free yards, it's going to be hard to overcome.
It's especially when you're playing, like you said, against these really good teams. I mean, if they go out and have 10, 11, 14 penalties against Tennessee, they're going to get routed. Yeah. I mean, it just can't happen. Some of the other stuff he talked about, and I do want to point this out because for those that watch us every week, a lot of time on Tuesday, we talk about the injury updates, but because now we're in SEC play, the availability report comes out every Wednesday, usually at night. So it'll probably be, obviously that would be for our Thursday podcast. So we'll make sure to break that down on Thursday's podcast, but it will be from that specifically the report and not exactly just what Lebby's talking about. So if you came on and tried to, get some information on the injuries, we'll wait for that report to come out. But he talked about a lot of stuff, including Tennessee and some of the challenges that they faced. Landon and I, we said after what was it, week 1 or I think it was week 1 that we're not feeling as good about the game as we originally thought. And he said what kind of stands out about them on defense, as he said, the way they're able to get after the quarterback. He mentioned the 15 sacks that Tennessee has. He says they're constantly pressure on the quarterback. They've given some things up. We'll see if some of those guys come back in the secondary. But what sticks out is how they're getting after the quarterback. And we've got to keep Blake clean to go play the way we want to play. And, yeah, that pass rush is ferocious. And he mentioned, I believe it's their 2 starting corners out. I know one for sure, which is the best one. And he's been out. He tore his ACL, I believe, in January in the offseason.
Right.
But he could be back at this point. We'll just have to, again, wait for the availability report. But, if you get those guys back along with the pass rush, it could cause problems.
Yeah, that pass rush is crazy. And, the reason we thought the game might be, we might have a better chance against them is we weren't sure what Joey Aguilar would be against better competition. Turns out he's just fine. And then you throw in the fact that they have an insane pass rush, which we'll break that down more later in the week. But, yeah, that's going to be a lot. And I've seen a lot in the comments, people talking about our offensive line. And that's where a lot of the penalties are coming from, too. A lot of holding, false start, illegal motion, things like that. So they're going to have their hands full, and they're going to have to keep shape and clean, and he's going to have to hit those deep shots, which Lebby went into that a little bit about how they weren't connecting on the big plays. But, they were there. But their timing was just off, or he threw it just a little bit too far, something. But, it just wasn't quite working this past week.
And he attributed that to the fundamentals. He said they weren't great on Saturday. He said he's usually been pretty clean from a body position standpoint, but that game it was not as clean, which, again, we talked about that on Monday's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
When you play teams that you just overlook and that you're better in, sometimes that's the stuff that kind of lacks. You just kind of get sloppy with it. And that's ultimately what happened, apparently, according to Lebby. So another thing is he talked about generating some of your own energy in the stadium because the crowd was one of the smaller ones they played in front of. And so they were asked, how do your guys feed off the atmosphere, especially if it's, not as crazy? And he said, it's a very real thing. Home field advantage is very real. And with our opponent coming to town, their first true road game, they had a neutral site game to open the year. But their first road game, it does. He says it needs to be an atmosphere and an energy that is really, really, really hard for the opponent to come play in. And so he said more about that, but he's calling out the fans because, again, against Northern Illinois, and that's another thing, as he mentioned, as the question mentioned too, when you play against these lower level opponents and not as many fans come out and your energy is not as high, then that does let you kind of relax and get sloppy on some things. And that shouldn't be an issue this weekend, though.
No, there should be plenty of energy for them to feed off of and then not have to create their own. But hopefully, we've talked about it before a little bit, maybe get too hyped up from the energy, which, it didn't happen against Arizona State. Obviously, at this point, this is now the biggest game of the season. So there's a chance that maybe they do, maybe because they're not coming off the cleanest game. They're pressing a little bit early, a little bit hyped up from the crowd, but it's Tennessee's first true road game of the year, so it's going to
make it uncomfortable.
It's going to be an interesting start to the game because there's a lot of little things in the balance on this one.
Yeah, for sure, and it's their first true road game, and it's the first true road game for Joey Aguilar at Tennessee, and obviously he played at Appalachian State, and then transferred to UCLA, but transferred to Tennessee before ever playing a snap, but. Yeah, make it miserable for them. They made it miserable for Arizona State, who tried to practice what it would be like, and even they said it exceeded their expectations. That's what you're going to have to do. Get some cheap penalties. We saw, and we'll talk about it in the national game recap, but we saw that effect in the Oklahoma-Auburn game. Auburn had a ton of penalties, a ton of pre-snap penalties. They had, I think, 2 or 3 delayed games. They had a couple false starts, all because the crowd impacted that game. And Mississippi State can have that same impact.
Oh, yeah, they easily can, especially with those cowbells if that gets rocking. And I really expect this stadium to be – we talked about how loud it was on the TV against Arizona State.
Yeah.
It's going to be louder.
Yeah, I think it will be. And especially they're doing the white out and, the white uniform, stuff like that. So, and you're 4-0. And I read this, which is interesting. We can maybe even have a topic about this later this week. Again, talking about how they're not ranked in the AP poll. They're the first SEC team to start the year 4-0 to not be ranked since 2013 when Missouri did it. So that's another thing we could talk about at a later date. But yeah, yeah, but a great start to the season nonetheless. And so that's another reason to be a little fired up for the game. But all right, coming up next, the annual opponents have been dropped. We know Ole Miss obviously is one, but who are the other two? We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, this episode's brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. You know what the local spot feels like? It feels like home. It's the kind of place where you walk in, everyone knows your name. The staffs are like family. They've been serving this community for years. You know them. They know you. Sometimes they even know your order when you get there. But those are the places you love so much. And also, those local spots, if you support them, you're also supporting the community. And that's a big thing. Because spending money there doesn't just support the business. It supports the people behind it. And that also supports, obviously, the community behind it. And it keeps them afloat. And local businesses are so essential to your local economy and things like that. So these local spots are what makes the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. And college football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. You can't get cheaper deals than that. Also, my favorite thing about the app, I've talked about many times, getting to see where I'm going to sit. That's a big thing for me. There's some stadiums that have blind spots, so you might buy a ticket because you think it's cheap, get there, and you can't see the game, or at least part of the game. So getting to see that seat beforehand is a big reason why I go with Game Time. Also, I like to know what I'm going to pay, so it shows you what the fees will be. A lot of places surprise you. You see tickets for $25. You go to pay that. Next thing you know, you're paying $70 after all the fees. So I like that as well. But so take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, so it has been leaked. Actually, later on today, we're supposed to find out all 9 opponents that Mississippi State will face in conference play next year, but it's already been leaked who the annual opponents will be. On 3 put that out. Actually, I think it was Chris Lowe who put it out, but On 3 also obviously shared it, which I think he is now actually with On 3. I can't keep up with all the changes they made. He was with ESPN for a long time, I believe. But anyways, Mississippi State's 3 common opponents. Ole Miss, knew that was going to happen. Vanderbilt and Alabama. So we didn't get the Vanderbilt-Kentucky that we were hoping for.
We got 2 out of 3 that we thought we were going to get. That third one was – I honestly thought it was going to be LSU for the third one. I was a little shocked when I saw Alabama. I mean, it makes sense, though. I mean, we knew it was going to be one of those 2. We wanted Kentucky, but we figured it would be LSU or Bama.
There were several I was surprised about with the teams. And we'll talk about some of those. But I like the lineup. Vanderbilt's obviously playing good football right now. But we'll see. I think Clark Lee has done a really good job. But as we saw with James Franklin, when those coaches do a good job, they get a bigger job. So we'll see if he ever leaves that and if Vanderbilt ever drops back to what they once were. Still, that's a program you should be able to compete with every year. I'm not saying you beat them every year, but I'm just saying you should be able to compete with that program every year. Ole Miss, again, rivalry, knew that was going to happen. Alabama was one that I know some people have talked about, we even mentioned it as
Mhm.
almost, I hate to say it's a rivalry, but I've seen people talk about it like a rivalry. I just don't see it that way. Maybe
Rivalry
that's me.
adjacent.
Yeah, maybe that's just me, but I know there are Mississippi State fans that have said it is. I've seen other people that just cover it that say it is, but I've seen a lot of people say, actually, I don't really consider them a rival. But nonetheless, I at least understand the Alabama one.
Yeah.
So overall, I like the group.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know. It's hard. It's weird to be like, yeah, we got Alabama. I like the group, but
Yeah,
it makes sense. I think they've been, we played every year since like the 50s or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's like 1 or 2 years in there that haven't been. I don't remember exactly when it started going every year, but I know it's been a very long time. So I understand why people call it a rivalry. It's just not quite there. It's just missing the thing that makes a rivalry a rivalry.
Yeah, and I understand they do have they have the name for it, the Battle of Highway 82. Like I get there's like an actual rivalry sense to it, and I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong as
Hey,
thinking that.
We've found out we're on the minority on a lot of things about rivalries. So
that is true. And we had a lot of Auburn and Alabama fans upset with us with our rivalry comments. No, ultimately, again, it makes a lot of sense, and I think they reassess this every 4 years, I believe. So this is
it was 2029. I think.
Yeah, something like that. I believe that's correct. So yeah, it's at least set for now, and we'll see if things change. Because obviously, and you want to do that because, let's say you set, 3. Let's see, let's just go with the ones that Mississippi State has. So you had Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. Well, what if during that 4 years, those 3 end up being really great teams? Well, then that kind of screws Mississippi State that has to play 3 great teams. The other teams don't have to play 3 great teams, So I'm glad they reassessed it. But some of the weird ones, Tennessee might have been the weirdest one I saw. Because I remember when we talked about Tennessee, we were like, man, I don't know what they're going to do because they have 4 rivals. Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Vanderbilt. 4 rivals. Well, they only picked 2 of those rivals. They picked Alabama and they picked Vanderbilt, and then they got Kentucky. So they got the one that we were hoping to get. Instead of having to play who did they not have to play? They don't have to play Georgia. Yeah, they don't have to play Georgia or Florida. Instead, they get Kentucky. It's just weird.
Yeah, that was a weird one. The only other one that really jumped out is like, this doesn't make sense is Ole Miss and OU.
Yeah, I thought that was a weird one.
From what I read a little bit, they just went like proximity with that one.
Yeah.
They picked the closest person who didn't have a third for OU.
Yeah.
But
I think they struggled with OU because you couldn't really give them, I mean, maybe you give them A&M, but then it's like, well, then they're basically playing 3 OG Big 12 teams, like that's just kind of weird. And then it's like, okay, what about Arkansas? Well, then Arkansas is getting Texas on top of that. So you're going to give Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma. And then, they got LSU and Missouri. So you'd have to replace one of those. Like, so it was that one was weird. I read a lot of people trying to predict who will get what. I never saw Ole Miss and Oklahoma predicted.
Yeah, but when you have those old Southwest Conference and the old Big 12 rivalries that intersect there was just no way to give all of them each other without without someone ending up with a weird one, and you got the weird one.
So who do you think, real quick, we're almost out of time on this segment, but who do you think got the easiest and who got the toughest?
I think Tennessee got the easiest.
I agree. Because especially right now.
You have Kentucky and Vandy, and then who knows if Bama's is going to be Bama again.
Yeah.
So I think that's the easiest one.
I think Auburn's got the toughest. Georgia and Alabama, and Vanderbilt, but Georgia and Alabama.
That one's tough. A&M has a tough one with LSU and Texas, and then
Missouri's been decent. Yeah,
every other year they're one of the top other teams, so I mean they might have a tough one there too.
Yeah. I think overall, I'm looking to see if they're Arkansas getting LSU, Texas, and Missouri, as we mentioned. That one could be tough. But all right, coming up next, we're going to recap some of the national games of Week 4. Don't go anywhere.
Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety picks awards than anyone else as of August 2025. And you can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from the smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved.
All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, week 4, we saw 3 ranked matchups take place. Oklahoma and Auburn was the lone SEC match. That was number 11 versus number 22. Indiana and Illinois, number 19 versus number 9. That was obviously the only Big Ten matchup. And then the lone other one was in the Big 12. You saw number 16 Utah and number 17 Texas Tech. So let's start with the Indiana one. They might be for real. I mean, a lot of people called him a fraud. Paul Feinbaum called him a fraud for last year.
Well, I think I'm going to call
63 to 10.
Illinois might just be a fraud.
They could be, but I still didn't see 63 to 10 coming.
I didn't either. That day, I didn't even turn the game on yet, but I was texting a buddy. We were talking about how games hadn't really been that great to watch up to that point. He was like, "This might be a good game," and I flipped it over, and it was like 28-0. I was like, "Never mind."
Yeah. Well, it was a wax, which I was surprised because Illinois actually has a really good defense, but it did not look that way.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, it did not look that way.
Yeah, that was a bad game for them. It'll be interesting. The Big Ten's so weird this year. You feel like Ohio State and Penn State are so much better than everyone else, but who's that third team? And Indiana might be. I mean, Oregon. Oh my God! To me, Oregon's still a Big 12 team.
No, that's fair. And I saw, I mentioned Feinbaum called him a fraud. He has said that Indiana should be in the conversation now with Ohio State as the best team in the Big Ten. That's how far he's changed on them. And they might be. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
Fernando Mendoza is now the Heisman favorite. He's playing really good football.
Yeah.
Oklahoma Auburn, that was 24-17 win from Oklahoma. The Sooners 4-0, which everyone said if Venables wants to keep his job, they need to go at least 5-0 heading into Texas. Should do that. They got Kent State as the 5th game, so they should do that. I learned more about Auburn than I did about Oklahoma in this game. I think Oklahoma is going to be a solid team, and I thought that coming into the year. I thought 8-4, 9-3, somewhere in there. Auburn was the team that, remember when we, in the offseason, when we were talking about the different power rankings, I was like, man, I think Auburn's a little underrated, and I believe that even more after watching that game because that was a game they could have won. Arnold's got to get rid of the ball faster because, yes, Oklahoma had 9 sacks, and they have a great defensive line. 3, 4, maybe even 5 of those because he's just holding the ball too long. But if he can get that corrected, they got a lot of good pieces. I didn't think they should have dropped out of the top 25 personally after that loss.
I mean, I see why they do, though, just from how the rankings work perspective.
Well, the reason why I don't is because Illinois got blasted. They're still in. And Notre Dame has 2 losses.
Fall.
Yeah, and Notre Dame has 2 losses, and they're still in. And that's why I'm just like – and just to be clear, I do think Notre Dame's a top 25 caliber team, but they did have 0-2 record,
Yeah, I mean they're 1-2, and their one win is over Purdue.
Yeah.
So
and it wasn't like a blowout either.
Like 20, 24 points somewhere around there. I mean, I thought OU, depending on, I mean, I knew Mateer was a good quarterback, but just how much he could elevate that offense would be how far they can go. Because you knew that defense. Venables is not going to run out anything below an average. Like that is your floor with him as your head coach is an average defense. So if they took a little bit step and Mateer elevated the offense, you knew that would be a dangerous team.
Yeah, and I saw some kind of rating. It might have been from PFSN, who we used on the Kelly Jones thing. They have Oklahoma as the number 1 ranked defense in the country, and you could tell. Yeah, they have a lot of good things going for them. I actually thoroughly liked the Utah-Texas Tech game. I thought it was an ugly game because there was a ton of turnovers, but I thought it was a fun game to watch. I think it's so weird watching that game and knowing one of these teams is probably going to the playoff because of how the Big 12 is now in terms of all the realignment and stuff. But Tech was very impressive. They go into the 4th quarter up 10-3 with about 10:22 left, I believe. Utah cuts it to 13-10. And it's like, all right, Utah at home, starting to make a run. And Tech scored 21 unanswered. And they did it with their backup quarterback because their starter got hurt, which apparently he'll be good going forward. That was a fun game to watch. I think Tech they got to be the front runner for the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, I think they have to be. And I didn't get to watch much of that game. I really wanted to watch more of it because I was interested in Utah's tackles. Yeah. They're apparently good, like two of the highest rated tackles going into next year's draft. Right. Both of them might be top 15 picks. So just because of how Utah normally is, they don't typically get blown out. I did not expect this. So I learned a lot about tech in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest believer in Baron Morton. I think he actually may hold the team back. So
good. And the backup was Hammond was really good.
Yeah, Hammond might be a better option for them.
The ridiculous one-handed interception by Jacob Rodriguez. Have to shout him out because for those that don't know, Landon and I worked together in Wichita Falls, Texas as reporters. That is where Jacob Rodriguez is from. He went to Ryder. It was Ryder High School now. There was 3 high schools there. Now there's 2. I think it's Legacy and Memorial are the 2. Yeah. But Ryder, he was the quarterback, 4-star quarterback who went to Virginia as a quarterback, transferred to Tech, and I think he even walked on at Tech and switched to linebacker. And he was all Big 12 last year.
Yep.
Had a great interception in this game, one-handed. And I believe I think he's leading them in tackles too. And they also mentioned on the broadcast his wife is in the military and she like flies like Black Hawk helicopters and all that. It was a really cool story. But we had to shout out Wichita Falls for that one.
Anytime we can.
Yeah. The only other things that kind of stood out to me is I missed on my upset once again. But finally, my team didn't get blown out. I had Nebraska beating Michigan. Michigan was favored by 2.5. I really honestly felt if Nebraska was ever going to get over the hump, this was the game to do it. It was a close, like I said, 2.5 point spread. Nebraska's at home. And they scored a touchdown late. So it was actually more of a 10-point win for Michigan. But Nebraska got this touchdown late. I see a lot of people criticizing Dylan Raiola who are Nebraska fans. I think he was actually really good. I think the line was terrible. I think he gets a lot of hate because he brings some of it onto him because he does a lot of the Mahomes isms.
Because he's just doing Mahomes cosplay every Saturday.
Right. But I think he's a really good quarterback. So I slightly missed on that one.
We're not going to talk about my upset. Just put in the comments who you want to see win next week, and that's who I upset.
I can't remember. Was yours Tulane, right?
Yeah.
Ole Miss, and that was a 45.
Hey, I think if Austin Simmons has played, I might have actually got that one right.
I was about to say, because David Pollack talked about it on his podcast, who should they start at quarterback going forward? And he said Trinidad, and I think I agree.
He looks so much better. He has actual.
It's because he can run.
Yeah, and he can process. Like, I think Austin Simmons probably has the more raw tools, but he just doesn't understand what he's supposed to do right just yet.
And I think Tulane's offense really hurt him too, because there was a point, I believe it might have been early third. It was either late second or early third that you and I had the same amount of passing yards as Jake Retzlaff.
Yeah.
He had 0. Like that's not a good thing to do. So, but yeah, so there wasn't a great slate of games.
No.
This upcoming weekend, there's a lot of good ones.
The Missouri-South Carolina game was very entertaining. Yes. Was not the best game, but was an entertaining game.
Yeah, and Sellers, I honestly thought Sellers looked better this time than he had before the injury, before the concussion. But now they're scrapping to get back in the playoff race with 2 losses. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But all right, it's another big moment on Locked On College Football Fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake 12, Locked On Big 12, leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. My name is Jaron Spor. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. Follow us, Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We post daily videos Monday through Friday. So check those out. We also will post a pregame and a postgame video on our social medias on Saturday. So for before the game and then after the game, of course. But yeah, until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.